I am thrilled to introduce today's featured guest, Suhas Ghante. He is the COO of chatwith.io, a partner at SVethos, and an operating partner at Adafex Ventures. He is a two-time alum of 500 startups and has served in executive roles at healthcare, cybersecurity, supply chain, insurtech, e-commerce, and food startups. And he specializes in business development, growth tactics, and go-to-market execution. Suhas, thanks so much for joining us today.
I am happy to be here. It's going to be a fun time today.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to turn my slides off now and turn the stage over to you and hide myself. And then, please, I want to tell the audience again, don't hold back on your questions. We have somebody in the background who is helping gather them. So if you have questions for while Suhas is presenting, just go ahead and drop them in. And then when we get to the AMA portion, we'll have them queued up to ask. But the floor is yours, Suhas. Please take it away.
Thank you, Dustin. You can see my slides?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for the introduction. I am super happy to be here. I've given this talk a number of times at FI and at various other venues. So I have a lot of fun with this talk, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of it over the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. So to get started, let me introduce who I am. As Dustin mentioned, I'm based in Madrid. I spent nearly a decade in San Francisco prior with about 6 or 7 startups over there. I've been privileged to be part of very early teams, either as an early employee or an advisor, or early executive at companies like Innovator, which is now a unicorn, Chef, which was a YC company. I've gone through 500 twice, and I've also been on the other side. I've started a company, went through 500 startups, raised a bunch of money, and also failed. And honestly, I learned a lot more from the failure than I did from the other ones that went pretty well. So my specialty is primarily growth and marketing and business development. So today I'm going to be sharing a couple of tactics and techniques to really help you guys go from 0 to 1. In the sense that figuring out how to grow and scale with limited resources and constraints is a skill, and there's certain ways to get beyond some of the challenges we all face. So the focus of today is going to be on the business development, sales, marketing, growth angle of getting from 0 to 1. So we're going to start with a couple of background material, some definitions, go through some tactics, and leave you with some toolboxes, on communication, software, etc. So let's dive right into it. I want to get some definitions out of the way immediately. And there's some common misconceptions around this, which are really important to understand to make sure this talk is as effective as can be. So we're going to focus heavily today on business development, not necessarily sales. So when we hire business development executives on your teams, the currency of a good BD person is trust, right? How quickly can they walk into a room and build trust? The currency of a good salesperson is closed deals. How many deals have they closed over their years working? What is the deal value, etc., right? So today we're going to focus heavily on the BD side of the house and focus a lot on trust. It's also really important to understand what trust means when it comes to a company, right? So trust is essentially your credibility, your reliability, and your authenticity divided by the perception of self-interest. So when you walk into a meeting, you want to have as little self-interest perception as possible and as much credibility, reliability, and authenticity as possible. This is extremely important, especially in early stage startups, as it's difficult to build trust, especially if you're selling to a larger company. You're going to be a young company, you're going to be new. They're not going to know you or trust you as much. So how do you get over the hump? So we're going to focus a lot on that today as well. The other side of this house I want to talk to you guys about a bit is sales and BD funnels. And we're going to talk a lot about hacking the funnel and all of that. But first, I want to define what a traditional sales or BD funnel might look like for you guys, right? So this is a very traditional funnel from about 10, 20 years ago that was quite popular. When you're selling a new product, there's typically 5 stages to sell, right? You need to get awareness of the product, get people interested in it, get them to consider it, evaluate it, and eventually buy it. And alongside each of these, there's various ways to do so, right? With white papers, cold emails, demos, pilot projects, and eventually a closing meeting. So the problem with this sort of a linear funnel is it's a bit outdated, and it just does not work for an early stage startup, especially with a lot of constraints around time and money. In my opinion, I think the funnel should be more like this, a bit more circular, where people can enter in as they need to. So when you're selling your product, nowadays, it's a consumerization of enterprise B2B. A lot of today is going to be on the B2B side, but this can also apply to consumer products as well. Essentially, folks explore what they want, they research it, they evaluate it on their own. Maybe they talk to you via chatbot. They might buy a trial version from you, use it, and then share it amongst their friends, right? And people can enter in any phase of this funnel as they see fit. They're not limited to the linear way of doing business from 20 years ago. So this is something really good to know, because the collateral we need for each of these areas is quite distinct from what we need in the linear way of doing business. And so today we're going to talk a bit about how to hack the funnel, especially when it comes to very early stage startups. I'm talking pre VC money, or a bit of angel money, where we have to be very scrappy and do a lot of things that might be uncomfortable, honestly. So I'm going to take you through a few of those uncomfortable things, or a few of those unorthodox things, to really get you guys to help go from 0 to 1 quickly. And the way I like to do this is honestly just to be as open and transparent and authentic as possible. So I'm sharing screenshots of my own challenges and endeavors and emails I've sent to get meetings, to get VC money, to do guerrilla marketing. And so this is the first one I'll share with you guys. And this is something that happened in 2016. It was a company I founded that eventually ended up failing. Learned a lot from it, though. And in this example I'm showing here, I wanted to meet this particular investor. And this is very early days. We did not have any significant capital to spend on going to a conference. So I simply sent out a lot of emails that looked very similar to this, that said, hey, I'm the co-founder of this company. We do big data, cybersecurity for banking. And then I would say, hey, after seeing your presentation at this conference yesterday, which I could not afford to go to, I said I thought I'd shoot a quick note, as I believe our company is well aligned to the insights you shared. Can we have a meeting? I'll share a bit more about my company and give you a deck. And this investor, who's a tier 1 investor who I really, really wanted to meet, wrote back to me the exact same day saying, yeah, sure, send me your deck. I can quickly see if there's a match and connect back. So I sent the deck, we ended up meeting, and some things happened from it. So this is just one, sort of use case where you guys can, if you don't have the money to go to events, you don't need to really travel a bunch right now. You can send emails like this to get meetings. I'll share a few more examples. This is just things that I've done. If you don't want to do these sort of things, that's okay. I just want to share what I've done personally and has led to some success. So another thing I did with the same company is I would really mine my competitors' customers lists almost every week. So essentially here, there was a competitor of mine who put every single one of their customer logos on their website. And they did very similar things to what I did in my company. Our product was quite similar. So I simply took a screenshot of this lead list and basically paid somebody offshore to get me the email addresses of the founders or executives of these companies. And I would email them saying, hey, I heard you're using, X software. We do very similar things, but it cost half the price, or some other value proposition. Should we have a conversation, right? And so this ended up leading to a number of conversations and customer leads as well. So again, just some guerrilla tactics for you guys to be aware of that you can use and it's at least worked for me to get you over the hump of initial sales, which I know is very, very difficult. I'll share a couple more. We used to sell a lot to the government, municipalities, and one of the things you'll find if you do B2G or even to NGOs, is there's a lot of politics involved. You really got to figure out who reports to whom, who has to be pleased in some certain ways to really move the contract forward. And so what really helped us a lot was getting the organizational charts from governmental organizations. This is the city of Boston. And so when we were having meetings with them, I could kind of tell who the next gates would be that I have to pass to get my contract through. So this is all public information. If you are selling in the government, I advise you to sort of really understand who you're talking to and who they report to. It's much more important there than when you're selling to a large private organization. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit and walk you through a potential scenario that I have faced many a time, and I'm sure many in the audience have also faced quite a bit. And if you haven't, I'm sure you will face it very soon. So the scenario is this. Let's say you met a potential angel investor about a week ago or so. You went through your deck, your pitch deck. They said, this is amazing. I'd like to invest some money. Send me the documents. So you sent them everything you had, all the investment documents ready to go. And it's been about a week, and they haven't gotten back to you after 3 touches. You've emailed them, you've left a voicemail, you've sent them a text, you've LinkedIn, you've done everything, right? And they have not gotten back to you. So in this scenario, what would you do, right? Ordinarily, I'm originally from DC, where we're a bit more reserved and polite when it comes to these sort of things. I would simply think that this is not, they're not interested. They're just being polite and don't want to respond, But I've learned, especially in startup land, is you just have to sort of go after them and see if they're going to say yes or they're going to say no. And so I use something called a no question to trigger a response. And again, these are real emails. This is a real scenario that happened. And in the same scenario, I simply said to the investor in an email, hey, first name, should we postpone discussions for the time being? Okay. And he said, in about less than half an hour, he said, Suhas, sorry for the delay. Had prepared to reach out to you this afternoon. I will be wiring a total of X amount, which he ended up doing that day. So the point of this pointed no question is it gets straight to the point. It's basically, in less polite words, put up or shut up, right? And usually when somebody gets an email like this, they understand that they are a bit in the wrong for having ignored you for a week or 2. And so they almost always apologize, and then they'll either say yes or they'll say no. And by the way, getting a no is much better than a maybe. Very similar scenario, except instead of asking for money from an investor, I was asking for somebody to sign a contract with me on a BD angle. And so I had emailed her saying, hey, it's been a while, I haven't heard from you, didn't hear anything from her. So I sent her a no email saying, hey, first name, should we cancel further discussions for the time being? And again, notice the timestamp. Within a day, she responded. She's saying, hey, Suhas, thanks for following up. Apologies for delays in responding. They almost always apologize, as I mentioned. I had a quick chat with my boss, and it's not the right time. We're not going to buy your product, which is fine. I would rather have a hard no than a maybe. I'm not going to waste more time on this lead. So I encourage you all to try these no questions, and especially when you're stuck in certain sales scenarios that just are not moving. It's something that's worked a lot for me. The other thing I want to mention about following up and being persistent is it's truly an art to following up. This is just from statistics here. 80% of prospects say no 4 times before they say yes. So don't be afraid of going after them many, many times. Nearly half of folks in sales give up after just 1 follow-up call. So don't be like them. Go after them, 3, 4, 5 times. And more than a third of folks read their emails on a mobile device. So a lot of these screenshots that I'm sharing with you, you'll notice that they're very short. I like to make it iPhone friendly. If you can't read it in the first screen of an iPhone, it's too long. So I want to make sure it's very punchy and to the point. So I recommend that as well. Follow up and keep it short. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to a meeting. I talked about how to get a meeting, how to move things along. But let's say you actually have the meeting, and you are now going to handle all kinds of objections, right? Especially in an early stage startup. You're going to hear these objections and many, many more. I encourage everybody to make an objection handling playbook, and I'll tell you how to do it right here. So these are the common ones that I've heard a lot. Now's not a good time for me to buy. I don't have the budget for your product. Your product is very inexperienced, or your company's too inexperienced, etc. Right? So the trick is not to really write down every single objection you can think of, but it's to go with a framework that'll work for you regardless of the objection that they pose. And it's a bit of verbal judo, as I like to say. It's a framework called the Feel, Felt, Found framework. And the best way to understand that is just to walk through an example. So there's 3 parts. And let's say you're selling your product to somebody and they say, look, I just don't have, I like your product, but I don't have enough money. I don't have the budget to buy your product. So you could simply respond with a feel statement saying, hey, I feel your pain in working with a limited budget. Or look, if I was also end of budget cycle, I would feel similar concerns, right? Basically, sort of empathize with them, create harmony, tell them it's okay. And then the second part is the felt side. Here you would say something like, look, I know, it's a lot of money. Several other clients have felt similarly. Or when I was on your side of the house, I felt that way in a similar situation when the amazing startup came by and I did not have the budget to buy it, etc. So basically tell them how you or other clients faced very similar obstacles. They're not the only ones with this objection. And then finally, you can hit them with the found statement, which is something like this. Even with a large capital outlay, even though it costs a lot of money, other clients have found a 3x return on investment within 1 quarter. So basically a differentiating factor that caused other customers to buy your solution, regardless of the objection held. So feel, felt, found, right? You create empathy, you harmonize with them, you tell them they're not alone, you've heard it before, and even though they have the objection, other people have felt or found otherwise, that the benefit is outweighs the initial objection that they raised. So I'm going to share these slides. There's a lot of interesting examples in here that you can just pull and pluck and customize for your own needs. So I'm going to now switch gears a bit more and talk a little bit about growth. And the way I want to talk about that, this is shifting gears from BD and getting meetings and things of that nature, is to really talk about network effects, which I think in my experience has been probably the most profound way to really create scale quickly, especially at early stage startups. So to understand network effects, it's really good to understand some of the math and the frameworks behind it. There's 3 kinds of networks in the world. On the left is a Sarnoff's law network. It's very similar to a radio station. You've got a node in the middle, and you've got all these listeners all around you. So the value of the network is simply n, the number of nodes that are connected to the radio network over here, right? It's linear. It's not that great. The next best one is Metcalfe's law, which is v equals n squared. This is more like the internet, where you have the internet here, and everybody can talk through the internet to each other. And so the value here is exponential. It's number of nodes squared. The best kind, which everybody should be going for as early as possible, is called a Reed's law network, and it's 2 to the n. So basically, this is like Facebook groups or groups on LinkedIn. Basically, this thing in the middle is LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn, but then you can make groups within LinkedIn and sort of connect with each other. So that makes LinkedIn extremely sticky. It makes you stay on LinkedIn, makes you make more groups on there. And that's a way to really build stickiness and hypergrowth through network effects. So V equals 2 to the n, which is much, much better. So as you think about this for your own startups, try to think more along this side. How do you make groups? How do you make your platform very sticky? That'll help you a lot in terms of exponential growth later down the line. And then one final concept I want to share with you guys in terms of growth is the notion of the one metric that matters, OMTM. I've been through 500 startups twice, and the thing that they drill into you heavily is you got to pick one metric at the start of the program early, and make sure week over week it grows a certain percentage. And as long as it grows that certain percentage, at the end of 3 months, you're guaranteed to have a nice J curve that all investors love. The trick is, though, you got to make sure you choose the right metric. If you choose the wrong metric, you're going to have a business you don't want in 3 months, which happens more often than you think. Choosing the right metric is an art. There's usually 3 things you should know before you choose it. What type of company are you? Are you B2B? Are you e-commerce? How early are you? How late are you? And then you want to make sure whatever you choose is extremely easy. So if you hire somebody tomorrow, they can work on improving the metric within a day without too much assistance. So some really good OMTMs from around the world. Airbnb, they use nights booked, okay, to figure out how well they're doing. eBay, if you're a marketplace, you almost always use GMV, gross merchandise volume, how much sales happen on the platform. Dropbox, interestingly enough, before I studied this heavily, I thought Dropbox measured revenue, but they actually focus more on megabytes stored. If you think about it, the more you have on Dropbox in terms of megabytes, the less you are likely to leave Dropbox for Google Drive or Box or whatever else is out there. And so they want to make sure it's very sticky. So think through your OMTM, really think about it heavily and make sure you pick the right one, and then just emphasize growing it week over week. I recommend about 7% week over week growth is recommended. So I'm almost out of time here, but I'm going to end with a few recommendations in terms of books and also some software I've used over the years that have helped me a bunch. So I used to send a lot of emails, mass email campaigns, cold emails, drip campaigns, you name it. So I've used a lot of tools out there. I highly recommend reply.io if you want a nice, easy, fairly inexpensive solution to do outbound mass emailing. If you're doing prospecting, you don't have 1,000 leads just yet to send emails to, I highly recommend Growbots. Is probably one of the best tools I've used for this, and it's fairly affordable. Productivity, follow-up, then Todoist are my favorites as well on that end. And then in terms of books, the No Question I talked about earlier comes from this book, Never Split the Difference. It's probably the best negotiating book I've read, written by a former FBI hostage negotiator. Amazing book. I highly recommend it. In terms of leadership, managing growing teams, Extreme Ownership is one of my favorite books out there on that subject. And then if any of you are looking to raise money soon from VCs, Venture Deals by Brad Feld is the holy Bible of venture capital. So I recommend you guys read that as well. So I will end there and leave my contact info and website up there for further questions. Thank you.
Awesome, Suhas. Thank you so much. That was a very awesome presentation. I feel like some of those tactics that you showed, especially the real world examples, were super interesting. So everybody, if you have questions for Suhas, please do drop them in the chat, and we'll get to them right away. First question here, I guess, is from Cindy. She's asking if you have thoughts, I guess, about HubSpot as a CRM. My opinion, Cindy, is it's one of the more approachable CRMs as opposed to some of the others that have so many features built on. I think HubSpot's pretty good for startups and small teams. But Suhas, what do you think? Any experience using HubSpot?
Yeah, approachable is a very good word to use for HubSpot. So it's exactly that. It's inexpensive. I think it's free. No, I think it's still free from when I used it up until a certain limit. It's great, a lot of integrations. As you grow in your business, I recommend, I've used close.io is quite good, or Sugar CRM if you're all in Gmail. But HubSpot's a very good place to start for sure.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay, so I have some other questions here I can get to, but please don't be shy if you have questions for Suhas, drop them in the chat. But I guess over your years, you've been a founder and now you've been on the investor side too. I guess what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen founders make? I guess especially early on. So on the business development side, are there specific errors that you've seen a lot of other founders, maybe in your cohort at 500 startups, or things that you've seen go wrong often?
Yeah, a number of things. I mean, personally, I made some early mistakes where I put all my eggs in one basket with a big corporate partner, and you being in a startup, you forget the politics of being in a big company, and so those really drag you down, and can really lead to a death of a company if it just takes too long and not enough runway to see the deal all the way through, which is what happened to us. Some other big red flags or things to watch out for. I would really focus. I mean, so now being on the investor side, my opinion is if you're getting angel money or seed money, it's for experimentation. It's not for scaling. So I recommend doing 5 to 10 experiments within a year in terms of distribution channels, marketing. Try Facebook ads, try LinkedIn, try doing webinars. Just try everything you can. And at the end of a year, of the 10 experiments, maybe 1 or 2 will work extremely well for you. And then when you come to Series A, then you pour all the money from Series A into those 1 or 2 things that work for you and really scale up. What I hate seeing is people would raise angel money or something and go a year or 2 doing the same thing over and over again and not really experiment enough. Right. So highly recommend experiment early on.
Yeah, that definitely seems to make a lot of sense, and totally agree on the eggs in one basket. Be it with a large client, that org chart that you showed of Boston was pretty scary to me personally. But yeah, I can definitely see the advantage of, even with a big corporate, like having something like that that helps you navigate who's the key decision maker or the next gatekeeper is. That's definitely daunting for the large
Yeah,
organizations.
yeah, it can really bog you down. Having been there, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked what you ended on there, talking about the one metric that matters. And I guess I understand it. Yeah, it depends on, like you said, the type, the stage, and of the company especially. But or do you have any favorite like growth KPIs? I mean, a lot of founders are familiar with some of the alphabet soup of acronyms, the CPC, LTV. I really liked the equation that you showed at the beginning too. But are there I guess, yeah, specific KPIs or metrics that stand out to you that every founder should understand, maybe especially if they're like a first-time entrepreneur and some of these acronyms are like less familiar to them?
Yeah, I'll tell you some ones that you should not pay attention to. Maybe that's might be even more helpful. I mean, there's
Sure.
a lot of vanity metrics out there that people will put in pitch decks, and then it just doesn't make any sense because nobody. You want to make sure you're measuring something that actually has an impact on your one metric that matters. In the sense that if you're targeting CPC, click through rate, for example, but you're really focusing on selling large deals, doesn't matter, right? If you're in B2B in your early stage, I would really emphasize the KPI of number of demos and demo conversion rate to pilot
Mm,
or to a long-term contract. So it's so the earlier you are, the higher in the funnel your OMTM or your KPI that you share to investors should be. The later you are, the further down it should be. Ideally, you're tracking everything at once and can show the whole funnel and it getting better over the months. But I would just focus on where you are at a stage and peg yourself in the funnel right there.
yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I really like that, yeah, you started with the funnel because some of the that was where my thinking was, having not seen your deck before you presented, was, going back to the traditional funnel. And I think the way that you talked about, yeah, it being more of a circular construct for, I think, how did you describe it as, consumerization of enterprise. Yeah, like it's
Mhm.
just like a bit different. I guess the question I was going to ask is, in like the broadest awareness, consideration, conversion kind of stepwise sequence, is there like a spot where you see founders getting stuck, especially like early stage ones? And but feel free to speak to that.
Yeah,
I don't know, in the circle framework, or like where.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I personally got stuck a number of times when it comes to evaluation in the sense of selling a pilot deal. Selling pilots, especially if you're selling large contract sizes, a large ACV,
Hmm.
it's very tricky. And I made the mistake of overthinking it. I made the mistake of putting too many things in the pilot and milestones and all these things to just overcomplicated it. I recommend now, as advice, is just to make the pilot as simple as possible. One page LOI. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to get. You'll get, you'll pay us this amount, and that's it. Don't make it too complicated. Just get the logo and get out of there. And then go sell to the next person. Especially early stage, you're honestly just getting validation from the market that somebody will pay you something for your product, right? So just go logo hunting in the early days and worry about sort of making it more standardized later on. I think I
Hmm.
made the mistake of making it too corporate too early, and I should have just focused on getting logos.
Yeah, that seems like, yeah, really, really great advice. But maybe not put them all on your website so that somebody you can go and scrape your competitors like you did. I love that example too. That was really interesting, and I think that's a really good tactic for a lot of founders to employ, because surely, if you say you don't have any competitors, it's not true. But and a lot,
Yeah,
it seems like so many companies that sell B2B do this, that you said, put the logos. So yeah, very, very interesting thing, I think, to do. Putting, I guess, your investor hat on, you've likely now heard probably thousands of founder pitches over the years, or your peers of 500 startups. Are there attributes of a winning pitch, I guess, that hook your attention as a founder and/or investor, and specifically, around business development or growth, things that stick out to you when you hear a pitch that?
absolutely. Yeah, that's a very insightful question. So, I mean, I heard something many years ago, and I've been using it in every pitch deck, I personally made. And when I see somebody else doing it, I get very excited. It's a concept of attraction sandwich pitch. So basically, you usually have 10 slides in a pitch deck, in an angel pitch deck. And the concept of traction sandwiches, slide 2 or slide 3 has a really interesting piece of traction. Like, hey, I've got, I don't know, 10 LOIs signed. Okay. And then you have the usual fluff, competitive analysis, the TAM, product overview, the usual stuff everybody sees. And then at the very end, slide 9, slide 10 has another piece of traction, right? Like, hey, I've got my co-founder CTO has, I don't know, 2 PhDs from MIT or something, some sort of traction-esque thing like that, right? So traction sandwich, usual fluff, really interesting things, first thing, last thing. So when you do that, it really gets somebody's attention because people just see so many of these pitches all the time. So just stand out and make it worthwhile. Make it worth something that is interesting in terms of having some traction. Everybody has traction. You just got to market it the right way.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I've never heard that one before, the traction sandwich, but it definitely makes sense to have something at the top to grab the attention and then kind of a closer as well. So yeah, I feel like that's also something that most founders can put into practice in their short slide decks. Question here from Yuli is, what do you think about the importance of partnership development? And she asks at which stage would you start to give attention to building partnerships for business expansion? How does partnerships fit in the framework of how you think about business development?
Yeah. I mean, it's important, but I would say it's less important the earlier you are. The earlier you are, it's all founder-led sales, founder-led partnerships. I mean, the earliest partnerships I had were just honestly, with just friends at companies or prior companies that I was at, or fellow founders who sort of put me into touch with some people. Later on, post seed round, you might have a VP of business development, for example, who really goes out there and does partner development. It's tough early days, but it's something that you should probably think about and get some frameworks around. One thing I did that actually was quite interesting was certifications around partnership development. So if you sell plugins or you sell something that depends on another infrastructure, getting them certified, getting them a little badge from your company does wonders for building credibility. And that trust equation I told you earlier on, if you're doing partnership development, think about that a lot. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, definitely. Or that might get you sort of featured sort of on his partner's website in a more prominent place by being certified. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great question there. Okay, I think we're running over, and I want to be conscious of your time. So, final question that I have for you here is just about technology. I mean, your company ChatWith.io, and then I look at the meeting booking app Meetsy. You're kind of providing the tech to help businesses facilitate their business development or the customer journeys that they take their customers on. So. And I know your users also use WhatsApp and one-to-one customer messaging. So I guess the question is, what do you think is changing most in the next couple of years, say like a decade, and specifically in technology, and how companies, especially tech-savvy ones, startups, are connecting, doing this kind of business development or sales prospecting, I guess. Any insights there on I guess it's just back to tools, but
yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm very involved with that day to day. I mean, I moved from SF to now Europe, and I'm seeing just a whole different world out here. So I think the next 10 years, it's really, this is an overused word, but it's true. It's the democratization of entrepreneurship, which is what my company right now is really focused on, is helping people sell whatever they want to sell through WhatsApp or through their phone, not needing a website. Yeah. And that opens up a whole other arena of the underbanked, right? And really democratizes entrepreneurship for everybody. So I think you're going to see more and more freelancer, more and more entrepreneur type folks in the next 10 years, more so than corporates. And that's I think where we'll be.
All right. Well, yeah, super interesting. And for those who haven't checked it out yet, go look over at chatwith.io to see the product that Suhas is the COO for. Because it's definitely interesting, and it points to what you just said there for the way that micro entrepreneurs are kind of moving. Thank you so much for your time, Suhas. Feel free to hang out if you like, or if you got to go, no problem at all. But yeah, super insightful presentation, and I will follow up with you. Yeah, if you have that slide deck, I would love
Yes.
to share with everybody who's here, because yeah, there were other tools and specific things on the slides that I think people would want to see.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, so here is just the final reminder, I guess, about using AirMeet before we move to open networking. Again, it works best if you're joining from a desktop or laptop. If you're in Chrome or Firefox, please be respectful of everybody's time in the little group networking tables. Just kind of try to be brief with your own introductions, and then take turns speaking and asking questions to one another. And the other final pro tip is that if you meet somebody and you want to connect with them further, don't forget to exchange contact information, or send them a direct message or exchange social links or something like that, so that you don't lose contact with the connection that you just made. And yeah, the final slide is just to have fun. Yeah, we're excited to be hosting these VIP Alumni Networking Summits, and we hope that you will enjoy the time here to connect with others. And yeah, I will see you all out in the AirMeet Lounge shortly. Thank you.